crystal dragon rises high, light shooting from its scales. It stares down at you, and it sees you. You can feel it looking into your heart. The crystal dragon rises high, light shooting from its scales. It stares down at you, and it sees you. You can feel it looking into your heart. Crystal dragon rises high, light shooting from its scales. It stares down at you, and it sees you. You can feel it looking right into your heart. Hi, I'm Reed. This is Crowline Publishing, and welcome to our continuing topics of DMing skills. And today we're talking about narration. And narrating is important because it's some of the most fun that you can ever have as a DM. But before we really begin, I just want to say, at the front, DM narration is just talking. And you can talk. I'm pretty sure that you can talk and that you've done it before. You've even told things to people. So, as with all DMing skills, none of this is very hard. All you can do is get better at it. So before we begin, like and share and subscribe, which I'm legally obliged to say on the internet. So let's get into it. Now, narration is more than just telling players what they're encountering. It is prepping them for all the subtext and the undertones and the emotions of the scene. Now, the analogy that I always like to use is that this performative narration is very similar to how directors use camera work and camera angles to tell the audience things without actually just stating it outright. A slow zoom into a room, you might feel that something sinister is happening. A point of view shot, you immediately feel empathy with the person whose POV shot that you are experiencing. If you were doing a lot of jump cuts, a lot of really, really quick, sudden, frenetic slicing around, you'll probably get the impression that the characters within the film are experiencing this as frenetic, chaotic, wild experience. And a sudden jump cut, the characters within the film can't experience that, but the audience can, and they get the impression that something momentous has happened within the story. A performative narrative is the exact same thing. Okay, so this is the important bit. The way that you say something, the performance that you give, is just as important as what you are saying. The way that you say something is important as what you are saying. This is the heart of the DMing experience. This is the heart of the performance of the DM. This is your role-playing if you are GMing a game. So performative narrative. Let's talk about what that means. There's more to DMing than just describing stuff to people. And a lot of that is performative. A lot of that is just you acting it out. If your NPC that you are dealing with is a Grime or Wormtongue kind of, suck up little, do that, If you want to get the impression that they're dealing with like a really, really physically powerful and demanding, act really powerful and demanding. These are the ways that you tell your players what the emotions of the scene are, how that you expect them to react, and how you're trying to make their PCs feel as well. That's really, really, really important. And this is, again, a skill that you can learn, but you have to start somewhere. And if you are shy about DMing, if you are shy about maybe doing a silly voice, if you are shy about acting like a silly bugger, get over it, because your players will really, really respond to a DM who goes the extra step to act. You don't have to do an amazing voice. You don't have to be, this incredible, skilled performer. You just have to try, because the players will really, really respond to it. They will immediately understand what you are trying to say to them. Performative narration is a way for me, as a DM, to suggest how I expect or want, but not demand, an encounter to play out. And that is, I think, for me, one of the highest recommendations of why you should really take some time to perform your narration. Because it is such a great technique to not railroad your players, but to prime them for what you think the coolest and most interesting outcomes of a scene are. So if I play an NPC with a camp and villainous theatricality, welcome to my castle, they know, oh, okay, the DM is hinting that this guy is the baddie. This is the guy that we can cross swords with. But if I play an NPC with no identity, or I brush over them, the Chancellor comes in, he gives you your 25 gold for killing the Chimera, says thank you, the kingdom is grateful, and then he leaves. They know that I don't really care about that NPC. And that helps with the way that I describe a room as well. If I'm, really, really draw attention to it, then they know something is important going on, obviously. Like, This is the throne room. It glitters with gold. The Emperor's throne, iron, and vast towers over everything. They know, oh, okay, this is important. If they're breaking into somewhere, oh yeah, it's his office. Okay, they understand I don't really care about the office, but if I describe the office in a way that draws attention to it, this room is spotlessly clean and incredibly well organized. It's like a robot lives here rather than a human. They immediately know, okay, well, I am describing to them something because I want them to involve themselves with it. And not every room, not every NPC, not everyone is as important as others. So you do want to know when to draw attention to stuff, and you do want to know when to just move the scene going along. Now, players are unpredictable. You never know when they're just going to go buck wild. You never know when they're going to pick up something that you did not mean to throw down. That is just part of the fun of the DMing, just dealing with these humans. Just embrace it. But what I do find is that this technique really does help you move the plot along. It really does keep people a little bit more focused, and it helps you keeping your narration on rails, which is important. You know, you're not telling a story, you are helping them tell their own story, but you do want to keep things moving along. But what should you actually say? So the first thing that I do is that I want to think about what the players are going to see. Now, before I go on, every player has a little virtual reality that they encounter the game world in. The game is different for every single player. They see and they experience different things. You cannot control completely what they see. You should not try. So the first thing that I want to do is just give a broad hint as to what they're going to encounter. And nearly everyone is going to experience, firstly, reality through what they can see. Now, I've never actually had a blind person or a vision impaired person at my table. I don't know how that they would encounter this kind of visual storytelling. If you do, why don't you tell me in the comments about it? I'd love to hear it. But I can't control that virtuality. I influence it. I do it through like a very broad image. This is the alien city. You are walking through a graveyard. This is the temple of the rat cult. Then I take into account what the atmosphere is. How does this place make you feel? And I think that kind of emotionality is what really takes a good game and makes it into a great game. How will you remember this game emotionally? Will you remember the fear? Will you remember the excitement? Will you remember the feeling of love you had for the NPCs? Do you remember feeling grossed out about a location? So I immediately want to use language that is emotional. The alien city isn't just, oh, it used to be a city for giants. The alien city is vast. You feel overwhelmed by its titanic scale. The graveyard is old, ancient, senescent. It feels cruel in the air. There are many bad things have happened here. Now, the PCs, of course, don't know that many bad things happened here, but the players do, and you are talking to the players. The cult's temple is vicious. There's something feverish in the air. The corridors seem to remember the fevered screams of fear. Again, these aren't great descriptions of the rooms and the world that you're describing, but the players are immediately getting the kind of mood, they're getting the expectations that you as a DM have for them. And then, when I've got that immediately established, here's basically where you're at, here's basically how it feels, then I start to add a few more details. A lot of people say that you need to be quite sensual. You need to really appeal to the senses when you were describing locations and NPCs. Now, I don't think that that's necessarily true. I think that if you're just doing like a checklist of you hear, you see, you smell, you taste, you touch, you're just going to lose them. You never want to go too long. You just want to add a few details. So you've got the establishing shot, you've got the emotions, and that's when you sort of get a little bit more into the details. This graveyard is on an island. The river burbles like a moron as you walk through the gravestones. No one has been buried here in centuries. The statues are crumbling. The headstones are cracked. Something breaks in the distance. This temple is a warren. The rat worshippers like it this way. Red, low-lit tunnels extend in every direction. Hanging from the roof are chains, and on those chains jangling bloody butcher's hooks. Not the body language, not the way that the voice is softening, because you're trying to let them know that you're not in a normal safe space anymore. This is a creepy and strange place, and that's why I'm acting a little bit creepy and strange. Now, you don't want to overdo it because people are great at filling in the details and they're great at coming up with their own mental pictures, and you don't want to try and overwhelm them. You are not a director, you are not making a film, you are just giving them the details to create their own imagery in a way that is pleasing to them as well. So check this out. Here's a description. The monstrous ironclad starship, the Atrocity, comes into view, vast and black and terrible. Wings that remind you of a bat spread out, and its evil, ugly cannons take aim at you. Now, I've actually barely provided any details there. Monstrous? Monstrous in form? Does it just feel monstrous? Does it look monstrous? Does it have a monstrous history? I've described it as an ironclad. Now, an ironclad is an old submarine, not a spaceship, or an old battleship, rather. But that to me suggests a kind of steampunk aesthetic, therefore. The Atrocity is the name of the ship. That's pretty cool. I guess it's an evil spaceship. Vast. I've told it vast, so it's big. How big? Vast would sort of suggest much bigger than me. Black. All right? Pretty simple. For a lot of people, the blackness is kind of goes with starkness. Wings that remind you. Does a Balrog have wings? I don't know. Evil, ugly cannons. This to me suggests that they look like cannons, but they leak smoke and foulness into the air. I haven't really said anything. I've given like a 2-line description of this evil spaceship, but it really, really works. The elven princess has eyes the colours of a storm, and a gown that looks like she's cloaked in the sun. That is a terrible description of what she is wearing and what she looks like, but immediately you have given the players the tools to really create their own powerful image. Do not overthink and do not over-explain. Give the players their own imaginative tools. No one needs to know the number of crenellations in the Death Knight's castle walls, but they really do want to hear that it is imposing, iron, mighty, skeletal. These are important. Your other skill as GM is to know what is important to describe. The Queen is always twisting the ring on her finger. That's a useful little detail that you need to narrate, because maybe it's a ring of mind control, and that's how she makes the guard do the murders. The city's walls are red and huge and thick. The sewer gates steam. Now, the reason that we want to include the sewer gates is because you're suggesting that's the way into the city. Be familiar with your own adventure, so you know that when you are describing stuff, what you need to draw attention to, what you are hinting at your players that they are expected to do, or that they can do, rather. There's no need to be super subtle. You're not trying to trick the players. Then players always feel better when they've figured something out themselves. Bloody players. But you do want to describe things to direct their attention to what you think about the scene. And also, you want to be short and sweet. Everyone's brain is destroyed from the internet these days. All our attention spans have been badly reduced. You'd never want to spend more than about 30 seconds describing something, because you're just going to lose people's attention. And again, if we use the techniques I've been talking about, which is establishing shot, emotional, and then a quick bit of details, you would be surprised by how much words you can fit into 30 seconds when you've got like a guide to help you describe things. Oh man, 15 minutes. I feel like I've barely begun. There's so much I'd love to go in and talk about more, but 15 minutes is enough. Anyway, let's recap. How you say something is important as what you say. Learn how to be performative. Learn how to control your voice, your body language to deliver a good line. You want to describe emotions as much as you want to describe the physical world in front of people. Stories live in the heart. Stories live in the gut. Your players will respond to feeling emotions as much as anything else. You want to learn how to draw attention to the little things, the little details that will really, really pay off, and it will just keep your games on the right track. And you want to learn how to let their imaginations work for you. You can never just put your mind in their mind, but you can learn how to give strong images that they will respond to. And I think that that is the real art of the DMing. Of the DM. I'm Reed. This is Crowland Publishing. You know what to do. Like, share, subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed this. Is there a technique that you use that I have not mentioned here? Is there something that I can learn from you? Why don't you let me know in the comments. See you next time. Bye.